Sometimes I wonder if there's more out there, my girlfriend said after being manipulated. I left her that night. Next morning, my phone showed 57 missed calls. I never saw it coming, not the full betrayal anyway. The signs were there looking back, small changes I dismissed, subtle shifts I ignored. When did it start? Sarah canceling our Sunday game nights for networking events. Her sudden interest in designer labels she used to mock. The way her eyes glazed over when I talked about our future cabin in the woods. Maybe it was the new friends, the ones who looked through me rather than at me. The ones who always steered conversation toward connections and opportunities and whose husband worked where. Or the subtle criticisms. My comfortable hoodie she once loved now, embarrassing in public. My contentment with our life reframed as lack of ambition. My preference for close friends over crowded parties labeled as antisocial. 10 years of my life, gone not in a single moment but eroded day by day while I wasn't paying attention. The Valentine's Day party at our house was Sarah's idea. She'd spent weeks planning everything down to the custom cocktails and heart-shaped appetizers. I should have noticed something was off. Sarah never cared about hosting before. My girlfriend of 10 years, the woman I thought I'd marry someday. I remember when we first met, college sophomores with similar schedules and overlapping friend groups. She beat me at Mario Kart and trash-talked the entire time. I was smitten immediately. We built our relationship on simple joys. Late-night gaming sessions, weekend drives in my beat-up Mustang, pizza and beer on the couch instead of fancy restaurants neither of us could afford. We grew up together. First real jobs, first shared apartment, learning to be adults while still holding on to the things that made us happy. I proposed after 7 years together, nothing flashy, just the two of us at the lake where we had our first kiss. The ring was modest but meaningful. Sarah cried when I asked, said it was perfect, said I was perfect. We were saving for a house, planning for a future that seemed certain and bright. Until Olivia entered the picture. Michael's new girlfriend, sleek and polished and connected. She worked in PR for a major tech company, knew all the right people, attended all the right events. She took an immediate interest in Sarah, started inviting her to lunch, to spa days, to networking events where Sarah knew no one but her. I was happy at first, Sarah making a new friend, expanding her horizons, having experiences I couldn't necessarily provide. The changes were gradual, so subtle I barely noticed them happening. Sarah started dressing differently, speaking differently, her goals and priorities shifting like sand beneath my feet. We should be networking more, she'd say after another evening with Olivia. Building our personal brand, a phrase the old Sarah would have laughed at. And now I stood frozen in my own kitchen doorway, watching as Sarah pressed herself against my best friend and business partner, Michael. Her hands were all over him, her lips inches from his, the intimate whispers, the way she looked at him, hungry, desperate. My heart stopped. What the hell is this? The words escaped my throat before I could process what was happening. They jumped apart. Michael's face was drained of color. Sarah's eyes went wide, not with guilt, but with something else. Annoyance at being interrupted. Alex, I can explain, Michael stammered, but I didn't want explanations. I couldn't breathe. The kitchen walls seemed to close in around me. Sarah didn't even try to deny it. She just stood there watching me with those cold, calculating eyes I'd never seen before. Who was this woman? Not the girl who used to stay up all night gaming with me. Not the one who helped rebuild my first car. Not the one who promised forever. I turned and walked away, out of the kitchen, through our living room filled with our friends, past Olivia, Michael's fiancée, who reached for my arm with concern in her eyes. I shrugged her off. I couldn't speak, couldn't explain what I'd just witnessed. My feet carried me to my car. My hands shook as I grabbed the keys. My vision blurred with unshed tears as I drove away from the home Sarah and I had built together. 10 years, gone. I checked into a hotel that night, turned off my phone, lay in the darkness trying to make sense of what I'd seen. The image of Sarah with Michael burned into my mind like a brand. Was this happening? Was this real? Morning brought no clarity, just a hollow feeling in my chest and 57 missed calls and messages. I couldn't face any of them, not yet. Instead, I drove, no destination in mind, just away from the betrayal, away from the questions, away from the life I thought I had. 3 days of silence. 3 days of replaying every moment of our relationship, searching for signs I'd missed. 3 days of wondering what I'd done wrong. When I finally turned my phone back on, it exploded with notifications. From Sarah, from Michael, from mutual friends, from coworkers, but one message stood out. An unknown number, a link to a private message board. "You need to see this," it read. "The truth about what happened." I shouldn't have clicked, should have thrown the phone away and kept driving until I hit ocean. But I needed answers. What I found shattered whatever was left of my heart. Screenshots of conversations between Sarah and Olivia, weeks of them planning, scheming, something they called the loyalty test. My hands trembled as I scrolled through message after message. Olivia's fears about Michael's fidelity, her plan to use Sarah to test him, to see if he would cheat if tempted. "Just flirt a little," Olivia had written. "See how he responds. I need to know if he's loyal before the wedding." And Sarah had agreed, but not immediately, not enthusiastically. What hurt most was seeing Sarah's initial resistance. "I don't know, Olivia," she'd written in earlier messages. "Alex and I have built a life I love. We're happy with what we have." "Are you really happy?" Olivia had countered. "Or just comfortable? Comfort is the enemy of growth, Sarah." I watched Sarah's resolve crumble message by message. Her firm rebuttals becoming hesitant questions, her defense of our lifestyle gradually weakening. "Maybe you're right," she eventually conceded. "Sometimes I do wonder if there's more out there." "Alex is content with mediocrity," Olivia had written weeks later. "You deserve more, someone who can match your potential." The Sarah I knew never cared about status or networking. She loved our simple life, our game nights, our weekend drives, our inside jokes no one else understood, or so I thought. The messages didn't stop there. They evolved, changed. "I think I actually like him," Sarah confessed weeks later. "He's so much more ambitious than Alex. He knows what he wants." My stomach lurched. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was calculated, planned. But why? What had I done to deserve this? More scrolling revealed another layer to the nightmare. Olivia had been mentoring Sarah for months, introducing her to the right people, teaching her how to network, convincing her that our life together was holding her back. The messages showed a systematic dismantling of everything we'd built. Olivia chipped away at Sarah's contentment, planting seeds of dissatisfaction, and Sarah absorbed it all, changing before my eyes through those damning text exchanges. The so-called loyalty test was just the culmination, an excuse for Sarah to act on feelings she'd been cultivating for months. My best friend, my girlfriend, both betraying me in the worst possible way. I threw my phone across the hotel room, watched it crack against the wall, felt something crack inside me too. That night I dreamed of Sarah, not the woman who betrayed me, but the girl I fell in love with, her laugh, her terrible singing in the shower, the way she'd fall asleep mid-sentence when we stayed up too late talking about nothing and everything. I woke up crying, grieving for someone who no longer existed, maybe never had. When I finally returned home a week later, Sarah had moved out, left her key on the counter, taken only her clothes and personal items, nothing we'd bought together, like she was cutting ties with everything that represented us. The whispers started almost immediately, at work, in our friend group, at the gym. Sarah was telling people I was controlling, that I'd suffocated her creativity, that she'd been unhappy for years but afraid to leave, that catching her with Michael had sent me into a rage. None of it was true, but mud sticks, and Sarah was throwing it liberally. Our mutual friends took sides. Most believed her. Why wouldn't they? She was the one out there, being social, telling her story. I was the one holed up in our half-empty house, unable to form words to defend myself. The business I shared with Michael suffered. Clients sensed the tension. Partners asked uncomfortable questions. Our employees walked on eggshells around us. I wanted to hate Sarah, wanted to hate Michael. But mostly I just felt hollow, empty, like someone had scooped out everything that made me who I was and left a shell behind. 2 months of this limbo, 2 months of averted gazes and whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms, 2 months of sleepwalking through my own life. Then the truth exploded. Olivia, drunk at a mutual friend's engagement party, confessed everything. Her insecurities about Michael, her plan to test him, how she'd manipulated Sarah into participating, how it had backfired spectacularly when Sarah developed real feelings for Michael. She spilled it all, in front of everyone who mattered in our social circle, in front of clients and colleagues, in front of Sarah herself, who stood white-faced and trembling in the corner. The room went silent. All eyes turned to me, waiting for my reaction, waiting for the satisfaction of witnessing my vindication. But I felt nothing. No triumph, no relief, just bone-deep exhaustion. I walked out. Again, but this time with my head high. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Sarah's reputation in tatters. Michael and Olivia's relationship imploded publicly and messily. The business we'd built together now a battleground of lawyers and asset division. Sarah tried to contact me, said she wanted to explain, said she'd made a terrible mistake, said she still loved me. I blocked her number, changed the locks, instructed my lawyer to handle any further communications. Michael fared no better, his tearful apologies, his claims that nothing had really happened, his pleas to salvage our friendship, our business, our history. "I've known you since we were kids," he said during our final meeting to divide the company. "You can't throw that away." But I already had. Some betrayals can't be forgiven, some trust can't be rebuilt. The company split was a war of attrition. Michael fought for every client, every contract, every piece of intellectual property we'd created together. "You're being emotional," he argued during one particularly heated negotiation. "This isn't personal, it's business." But it was personal. Every shared idea he now claimed as his own, every client relationship he tried to poison against me, every employee he attempted to poach. "We built this together," he reminded me constantly. "You don't get to just push me out because you're angry about Sarah." I almost broke during those months, the constant battles. The legal fees were mounting, the sleepless nights wondering if I was making a catastrophic mistake. Some days, exhausted and drained, I considered giving in, letting him keep his share, continuing as business partners while pretending the betrayal hadn't happened. It would have been easier, cheaper, less painful in the short term. But I couldn't do it. Couldn't spend my days looking at the face that had hovered inches from Sarah's in our kitchen. Couldn't shake hands that had touched what wasn't theirs to touch. I mortgaged my house, took out loans, leveraged everything I had. I bought him out, paid significantly more than his share was worth just to be free of him. Every penny a reminder of what his betrayal had cost me, financially and emotionally. Money well spent for peace of mind. 18 months later, I barely recognized my life. New apartment, restructured business, different social circle, different me. The hollow feeling remained, but now it was lined with something else, something harder. Wisdom maybe, or just scar tissue. I deleted my social media accounts, cut ties with anyone who'd chosen sides during the fallout, focused on rebuilding my company without Michael's shadow hanging over it. Healing came in strange, unpredictable waves, months of functioning on autopilot, weeks lost to anger so intense I had to pull over while driving because my vision blurred. Days when memories ambushed me in the cereal aisle, in the shower at stoplights. I tried therapy, tried meditation, tried a brief ill-advised stint with sleeping pills that left me foggy and numb. What helped most was routine: wake up, work, exercise until exhaustion, sleep, repeat. For a long time, I was just surviving, existing in the after without any sense of forward motion. Then, gradually, almost imperceptibly, surviving became living again. I started cooking elaborate meals just for myself, bought plants and kept them alive, trained for a marathon I had no intention of running, rediscovered old hobbies that had nothing to do with Sarah or Michael or our shared past. Some nights were still hard, empty spaces in the apartment that once held her things, songs that triggered memories I wasn't ready to revisit, dreams where everything was still whole and perfect, leaving me devastated upon waking. But those nights grew fewer. The sharp edges of grief gradually softened to something I could carry without bleeding. I started dadding again, cautiously, awkwardly, coffee meetups that rarely led to second dates, each one a reminder of how much work rebuilding trust would take. I'd catch myself scanning for warning signs, dissecting innocent comments for hidden agendas, waiting for the betrayal that now seemed inevitable in every new connection. It wasn't fair to these women, wasn't healthy for me either. I stopped dating, decided to focus on myself until the wounds were less raw. To my surprise, success came professionally during this period. Without the weight of betrayal on my shoulders, I made bold decisions I'd previously avoided, expanded into new markets, took risks that paid off handsomely. Turns out I wasn't the one lacking ambition. I'd just been anchored to people who held me back while criticizing me for not moving forward. The company flourished. My team grew. My vision for the business clearer now without Michael's constant compromises and half-measures. Success didn't heal the hurt, but it gave me purpose, direction, something to focus on beyond the wreckage of my personal life. Nearly 3 years after the Valentine's Day that ended my old life, I met Alina at a business conference in Chicago. She wasn't impressed by my company's growth or my recent feature in an industry magazine. Instead, she challenged my presentation points, argued with my conclusions, called my projections optimistic at best. I liked her immediately. She wore no makeup, had dog hair on her blazer, carried a battered leather briefcase that had seen better decades. We ended up talking until the hotel bar closed, about business, about books, about vintage arcade games and the merits of manual transmissions and whether pineapple belongs on pizza. No networking, no status jockeying, no subtle digs disguised as helpful advice, just conversation, honest and easy and real. When I returned home, I didn't expect to hear from her again. Chicago was half a country away from my Seattle base, but she emailed the next day, professional at first, then less so. We built something slowly, cautiously, me still wary of trusting too quickly, her patient enough to let me set the pace. 3 months of long-distance calls and video chats before we met in person again. 6 months before I told her the full story of Sarah and Michael and Olivia. 9 months before I realized I was falling in love again, despite my best efforts not to. Alina was nothing like Sarah. She didn't try to change me, didn't need to be the center of attention, didn't measure our relationship against others' standards. She built robots in her garage for fun, coached her niece's science club on weekends, preferred homemade pizza and beer to expensive restaurants. She had her own scars, a divorce that left her cynical about marriage, trust issues from past betrayals, a tendency to retreat into work when emotions got too complicated. We understood each other's damage, respected each other's boundaries, gave each other space to heal while still growing closer. For our first anniversary, she gave me a vintage gaming console she'd restored herself. I gave her a key to my apartment. When work brought her to Seattle for a 6-month project, we decided to try living together. Not permanently, just an experiment, a test run without pressure or expectations. I was terrified, afraid of sharing my space again, afraid of getting comfortable, afraid of being vulnerable to another life-changing betrayal. But Alina wasn't Sarah. She proved that daily in 100 small ways. The way she'd ask before rearranging anything in the apartment. How she maintained her own friendships and hobbies without trying to change mine. The respect she showed for my work, my boundaries, my healing process. 2 years after the Valentine's Day disaster, Sarah reached out again. An email this time. Long and rambling and full of excuses disguised as apologies. She'd broken things off with Michael months after I'd caught them. Realized she'd been manipulated by Olivia. Understood now what she'd thrown away. Missed our life together. Missed me. I read it twice. Felt nothing but a distant pity. Then deleted it without responding. That night, I watched Alina as she concentrated on beating my high score on the arcade cabinet we'd rebuilt together. Her face scrunched in determination. No makeup, no pretense, just her. The hollow feeling was gone, filled now with something I hadn't dared hope for in the aftermath of betrayal. Something real, something mine, not a replacement for what I'd lost, not a bandage over still healing wounds, but something new, something better. Alina moved back to Chicago when her project ended. We continued our relationship long distance, flying back and forth monthly, building something solid despite the miles between us. I think about Sarah sometimes, about the decade we spent together and the future we'd planned, about how easily it all unraveled once the right pressure was applied. I hope she found whatever she was looking for, hope she learned from the damage she caused, hope she became better, not bitter. But I don't miss her, don't miss who I was with her either. Life doesn't always go as planned. Sometimes it shatters in ways you never see coming. Sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who hurt you beyond repair. And sometimes, if you're lucky, that shattering makes space for something that would never have fit in the life you thought you wanted. Last week I accepted a job offer in Chicago, found an apartment big enough for two, asked Alina if she wanted to try building a life together properly this time. She said yes. The night before I left Seattle, I found a box of old photos Sarah had left behind. Us in our early 20s, smiling, happy, unaware of what was coming. I showed them to Alina during our video call, waited for jealousy or insecurity or discomfort. Instead, she studied them carefully, looked at me with those clear, honest eyes. "She's part of what made you who you are," she said. "The good and the bad, I wouldn't change any of it." I wouldn't either, not anymore. The betrayal nearly broke me. The aftermath reshaped me. But this new life, this second chance, has healed me in ways I never expected. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what you really need.